Hello, everyone. We're happy that you've joined us today. We're very excited to present our new GOB chemistry discipline to you. My name is Lee McKenney. I'm the marketing manager for Hands-On Labs, and I will be handing this presentation off to Dr. Ben Shupe, who is the developer of GOB Chemistry, and he'll provide you some details about the course. And then Dr. Duane Cagle will follow him up, and he'll discuss about how you would go about teaching GOB chemistry online with HOL Cloud. So without further ado, I'm going to hand off to Dr. Ben Shupe, and you guys can hear what you came to hear. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Ben Shupe alongside with Duane Cagle. I have a PhD in organic chemistry, and I've been recently, as Lee was saying, developing this GOB chemistry course I'm excited to talk to you today about. I'm also joined by Duane, who is our senior scientist on staff, who also is a developer for us on the curriculum side. So we'll start by a brief introduction to what GOB chemistry, for those of you who are not familiar with it. GOB chemistry stands for General Organic and Biochemistry. It's typically a class offered to students who are in some kind of health major, typically students who are pursuing something in, say, nursing or exercise science. So what I have been developing is, from that, 32 new experiments that we're going to be offering through our platform. The important thing to note about GOB chemistry as well with that is that typically it's some kind of survey class. So typically it's either a 1 semester or a year-long course, and this class assumes that students have no prior chemistry knowledge before they take this course. So this will cover everything from the start to talking about atoms all the way up to complex biochemical molecules, but at a pretty much a surface level understanding. The biggest thing you can understand from that is that if you compare this to, say, taking just an organic chemistry class of this portion of it, they'll typically go into, hundreds of reactions to talk about specific chemicals that would do transformation for, say, an oxidation or reduction. But in terms of GOB chemistry, when they talk about that same kind of topic, it will cover something just on the basis of what is oxidation, what is reduction, how can we just see some simple examples of that. What we developed, as I said, was a 32 experiment library that to match what's currently being taught by people in both the online and in-class GOB chemistry environment. And so we've made these so there can be customizable kits for these students. Additionally, the content that's been written is that it's been written specifically for students who are taking this class. We do offer general chemistry experiments that have very similar titles to them, but these specific examples are written in the background, and the experiments and the questions focused on the learning objectives and other topics that are related to just GOB students. Again, all of these experiments will have step-by-step procedures for the experiment that will guide the student from start to finish, as well as guiding them through these learning objectives. So again, our kit that we'll be offering for this course comes with both physical durable materials as well as consumable materials. So for the durable materials, these are things like, glassware, thermometers, things that they can use from different experiments over and over and over again. And then the durable materials, the consumable materials will typically be the chem bag. So for each experiment, there may be a chemical that they need that are in these small dropper pipettes that they will be using for that one experiment. They'll use them up and then they'll throw them away or dispose of them at the end of the experiment. So typically what we've done, as I was saying, was we have redesigned the background of the Explore, which is called our exploration section for this GOB chemistry product. And so what we've done is we typically have a exploration section for various topics that are needed for the student to complete the experiment. We write the exploration where it is unrelated to whatever textbook or class they're taking. And so the idea with these backgrounds is that they will be able to learn all the information that they will need to be able to complete the experimentation. Each of these sections are typically have a small paragraph about the details of that, and then include some kind of figure or photo to help reinforce the exploration section. So a little bit about the creation process of how we developed this specific course that we're now offering was, first, we looked at the different experiments that were currently being offered by GOB classes, whether they be both online or on campus, and looking at the Timberlake textbook and Timberlake lab manual that contain all of these experiments, and then looking at our current library and figuring out what were the gaps that were missing in our library from a procedural standpoint, at which point I then went in and designed the missing experiments from our library. Typically, we were missing experiments in the organic and biochemistry side, and so we developed new experiments to kind of fill in those gaps. Then the content from all those experiments were rewritten and wrote, as I said earlier, focused on the GOB student. And then at which point we contracted out to a board of advisors who was 4 instructors that currently teach GOB chemistry in an online setting, and they reviewed all of the content that we sent them from all 32 of these experiments. They were reviewing them for, you know, anything from how the flow of the procedures were going to how well or the depth of the content that was being covered in them. And from there, I took all the average of these comments and applied revisions to make this to a more market-focused GOB offering, at which point it's now been released to sales, and classes that are starting in May 2019 can have these kits moving forward. So some of the new experiments we're excited to talk about that go along with GOB chemistry that were not part of our offerings before was we now have a properties of alcohol lab where we're looking at the hydrogen bond donors and acceptors of different alcohols, the classifications of different alcohols, looking at alcohols in terms of their solubility and related to a non-polar or polar environment. And then again, at the end, we're going to look, the experiment looks at the classifications of different alcohols and how they have different boiling points depending on whether or not they're primary, secondary, or tertiary type of alcohol. Additionally, we expanded our identification of gases experiment to include the ideal gas law, in which the student will be looking at a Charles law experiment to look at the relationship between temperature and volume. And then finally, one of the other new experiments we've done has been looking at metabolism, which was missing from our library, where the student will be extracting out starch from a raw material and then feeding that after degrading it down to simple sugars through a process to feed it to yeast, and then they will monitor the fermentation and consumption of those simple sugars into conversion of alcohol by looking at gravity of those solutions that they're creating. So for our GOB chemistry, we have 2 standard kits that are available. The first one is with the idea of having a year-long course where the first half is going to be mostly general chemistry, which will consist of 12 gen chem experiments. Again, these are all have been written with the GOB student in mind and the language of those experiments. And the second semester will then shift into the focus of organic in the first part of it, and then move using all the different structures they learned from organic molecules and into the biochemistry side at the end of it. Again, these kits can be customizable to whatever needs you have, but this is our standard kit that we're offering at the moment. And then additionally, we also will have a single semester offering because we understand that the needs for different schools may vary. Sometimes, as I said, this class is either offered as a year-long course or a single semester course. So again, we've taken similar to as you saw on the previous page and combined this into a 12 experiment, 1 semester course. Again, we have, as I said, this only tiles up to 24 experiments. We have 32 available. And so we have additional experiments that are available that you could swap in and out from any of the experiments you saw on the previous 2 slides for making a custom kit, depending on the needs and what you want to have your students accomplish through these labs. I really ran through some of these experiments really quickly, and I don't expect you to write them all down, but we have them available to look at them and learn more information at our website, which is up here on this slide, and you're welcome to go and learn more on our website. And I'll now hand it over to Duane Cagle to talk more about our platform.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Ben, for going over our new course offering in GOB Chemistry. And we realize that many of you in the audience today may not be familiar with hands-on labs and the products that we offer and the type of curriculum that we design. So I want to take just a few minutes to familiarize you with us as a company and how both you and your students use our materials to be successful in your courses. First and foremost, we've made the classroom mobile, meaning that students can interact with our curriculum anytime, any place, anywhere, with any kind of device. And this is very important for today's online learners, because we know when students are more engaged, they are more likely to be successful in your class, and you will experience lower drop rates and higher GPAs from your students. Hands-on Labs is your one-stop shop for all your online science laboratory teaching needs. We provide modern pedagogy, cloud-based learning platforms, and hands-on experiments using lab-grade physical materials. We support a variety of disciplines in addition to GOB Chemistry that Ben demonstrated today. For example, anatomy, physiology, biology, general chemistry, environmental science, forensics, geology, microbiology, and physics. Furthermore, not just these standardized kits and course offerings that we have for you, but we give you the ability as an instructor to customize a kit based on the exact needs of your particular course. For example, many of our clients have environmental chemistry courses or human biology courses. This allows you to mix and match A&P, biology, chemistry, and environmental science all in one kit for, again, the specific needs of your class. Ben already showed you a photo of some typical chemistry materials. Here gives you an example of the A&P. So we provide a variety of dissection specimens, a 3-foot tall to scale human skeleton model, and a variety of reagents to show physiological processes that occur in the human body. We also offer microscopes for students to use to view various slides. Again, we believe strongly that students learn science by conducting real experiments. Here you see an example of students using our materials in their home. You'll notice also that we provide all safety materials required by students. And along the lines of safety, our company actually provides liability insurance coverage for all end users of our kits. So you, the instructor, and your institution do not need to be concerned about students using chemicals or students dissecting outside of your supervision. We do provide coverage should they experience an accident, but at the same time, in over 2 decades of being in this business, we're happy to report that we have been claim-free during that time. Again, we support all of our curriculum on our cloud-based learning platform because we know it's very important that students can engage with that content through any type of computing device that they prefer, whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet, a laptop computer, or certainly a traditional desktop computer. We also know from being in this business for over 2 decades that online students have very busy lives and that they don't always use their curriculum or at least read the background of their lessons from the comfort of their home or home office, that many times they need to engage with curriculum when they're on the go, such as when they're using mass transit or waiting over at a child's sporting event. So what do students get when they purchase a kit? Well, not only do they get the physical materials that we've already shown you an example of, but they get the free lab manual that coincides with that kit. And again, that lab manual is hosted on an online cloud-based platform. So here you see an example of a kit, and you'll also see an example of the landing page that a student sees when they log on to HOL Cloud. The first thing that they will view from that login is any special notes from their instructor. They will then be required to complete 2 prerequisites that involve how to use the platform and submit work, and also, and very importantly, how to conduct experiments in a safe fashion. So just as you include laboratory safety as your first day in the physical laboratory for your face-to-face students, it is a prerequisite for your online students using our physical materials. So how do we design our lessons? I know Ben went over that a little bit about the review process, and he showed you the example of a curriculum page, but very specifically, all of our lessons consist of 3 well-defined sections, and those are titled Exploration, Experimentation, and Evaluation. Now, you may recognize these terms, and indeed they are modeled after the 5 E's of science learning. The exploration section that is represented here includes all the background material that a student should understand before conducting the hands-on procedures. Those hands-on procedures are located in the experimentation section, and then finally the evaluation section gives the student the opportunity to demonstrate how much they've learned by conducting the lesson. Now, at the beginning of each of these sections is a highlighted estimated completion time. And here you'll see for this section, it is approximately 30 minutes, but we also notify the student in advance how much time they will need to set aside for the upcoming section. And indeed, time management is one of the biggest challenges that your online science students have when it comes to conducting experiments. You know, they're not showing up to campus 1 to 3 hours per week at an assigned location. So it is imperative that we give the students as much upfront knowledge as possible of how much time they need to budget in order to be successful. Following the time allocation are the learning objectives. We model our learning objectives after Bloom's taxonomy, and they are unique for the exploration and the experimentation section. So for this exploration section, you'll see they start with verbs such as discuss, describe, and explain. So very clearly defined for the student, and upon completing this section, they should be able to accomplish those 4 objectives. Now you'll see at the bottom of this screen, there's a blue tab labeled Test Your Knowledge. Now before a student advances to the background information, they are required to demonstrate what their inbound subject matter knowledge is. And Test Your Knowledge questions are always drag and drop in functionality. And once a student completes their answers, they are provided with immediate feedback that you see on the right half of this screen. And therefore, the student can easily identify any learning gaps that they have before they cover the background content of the lesson. Now, this complies with metacognitive learning theory, which states that once I, as a learner, identify what I don't know, when I encounter that information in the future, I will automatically focus on it. Here's some more examples of Test Your Knowledge activities. Again, they're always drag and drop. We'll see the top activity is an ordering sequencing example. The next one is a categorization question, and then finally an image labeling question. Now, once a student completes those Test Your Knowledge formative assessments, they do encounter the background content for the upcoming exercises. And as Ben showed you earlier, they are always arranged as very manageable blocks of text, always accompanied by visual representation. So in this case, it's a diagram that's been labeled. It could very well have been a high definition photograph, a flow chart, or any other graphic representation of the concepts that are being presented on the page. All important terms are always bolded. And again, the text is in very manageable 1 to 2 paragraphs before an image is provided. Our content is always textbook agnostic, meaning that we're going to provide enough information for the student to assure their success with the upcoming procedures and not rely on the student already having covered that material either in the lecture portion of your class or in a lab or textbook manual that they may already possess. Now, at the bottom of each of these content pages, the student is going to encounter 1 or more multiple choice questions. And these questions are designed to test the student's comprehension of the material that was just presented. Again, the student checks their answer and is provided with immediate feedback in the form of the correct answer should they have answered incorrectly. At the conclusion of the exploration section, the student will have covered numerous pages of background content and answered likewise a sufficient number of multiple choice questions to assure they do understand the content. Now they're ready to begin the hands-on procedures of the experimentation section. But before they complete those first hands-on procedures, we're going to provide the student with enough guidance to be successful with those physical materials in their kit. So let's say it's a biology, microbiology, or an AP lesson that involves microscopy. Here we see an example that the student's going to view a video to make sure they understand the basic functions of that microscope before they're expected to view a slide. Similarly, should a student be using one of those dropper chemical pipettes that Ben showed photos of in the chemistry kit, we're going to provide them with a video of how to both open and dispense the liquids that are in those chemical pipettes before they are ever expected to use them. Also, within the step-by-step procedure, students are presented with photographs of the physical materials in their kit and how they should be used for that particular procedure. Now, at the bottom of each of these procedural pages, the student will encounter a blue data tab. And the students are going to use these blue data tabs to record their observations or measurements that they are expected to record within the step-by-step procedures. And it is important that these data tabs then populate the entire screen once the student selects them. Certainly, if your student is using a mobility device such as a cell phone or a tablet, you know, they're not going to have the luxury of tabbing between different windows. So we've taken that into account when we devised this cloud-based platform to make sure it's easy to use on all devices that your students may choose. So here you'll see an example of a data tab. The student's going to record their observations and their results. Once they type in those responses, they are automatically saved. So the student never needs to hit a save function. They never have to worry about losing internet connectivity and therefore losing their work. The moment they input the data, it is automatically stored on the HOL Cloud platform. Some other examples of students being able to save work or the types of work that a student can provide include photographs. Many procedures do require students to take photographs of their completed experiment and their results. The students, once they make that photograph, can easily drag and drop it into a photo panel. If a student also can use labeling tools that we already have built into HOL Cloud, so they're not required to have additional computer software to label images. And then lastly, at the bottom of each procedural page, students will encounter several open-ended assessments. Now, these assessments are summative in nature. They're designed for a student to relate their experimental data to the concepts being addressed in the lesson. Once again, their answers are going to be auto-saved, and then they're permanently stored on the cloud platform. The third and final section of every lesson is titled Evaluation. And this is a multiple choice exam that covers the whole scope of the lesson, from the background content all the way through to the experimental results and to those open-ended questions that the student would have already completed. So you can think of this as an educator as a miniature lab practical for just this lesson. These responses are auto-graded, and they do provide the student with immediate feedback. Now, unlike the feedback the student received from answering the earlier multiple choice questions, these questions provide detailed remediation for the student. They allow the student to relate which learning objective is corresponding to this particular question, but more importantly, where the information was provided in the lesson. So if the student answers it incorrectly, they are able to go back and review the information. Even though they're not able to retake this exam, at least the information is still there for them to go back and reflect on. So that concludes the student experience from using both our physical kits and the curriculum that we house on our cloud-based platform. But I'd really be remiss if I didn't take just a couple of minutes to show you the various instructor tools that we've made available to you, the educator, to facilitate how you teach your class and how you grade your students' lab results. First and foremost, we have a fully integrated gradebook function within the HOL Cloud platform. This allows you to assign point values to all the questions and data tables that are already housed on the platform, and then likewise assign total number grades to any of those open-ended questions and data table responses, keeping in mind that all of the test your knowledge and multiple choice type activities that the student uploads and answers are auto-graded for you by HOL Cloud platform. And here shows you a more detailed view of that, of how you can either grade by student or grade by lesson, and an example of total percentages that both you and the auto grading program have assigned for your students. Here shows you an example of how you would manually grade a data table and manually grade an open-ended question. Anytime you use the Gradebook tool, it's already populated with our answer key. So it's very easy for you to compare the data that we recorded from conducting these experiments as we designed them in-house and our suggested open-ended answers to those short discussion questions. You can then provide remediation and feedback for your students in addition to just assigning them a number grade. So you can leave a message for your student and explain to them why you gave them 100% credit, or maybe some suggestions for how your student could have answered the question more effectively. We also give all instructors the ability to add supplemental content to any lesson page that we have already built and housed on HOL Cloud. This gives you the ability to really tailor the content to the needs of your class. So here we see an example of an instructor adding a paragraph between one of our paragraphs and an image that we already had on the platform. But not only can you add supplemental text, you can also upload additional images and videos. And so you see that example of the little tabs for text, image, and video there between the text panel and the image. And here which shows a completed instructor section where the instructor not only uploaded text, but also their own diagram. Any content that you upload in conjunction with the standard content will automatically be highlighted on that page to draw your students' attention to it. We've made sure that the curriculum and the gradebook functions on HOL Cloud are easily integrated into most existing learning management systems that are likely to be used by your school. So whether your LMS is Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, or Moodle, or many others, we provide on our end all the course hooks and lesson hooks needed by your IT team at your institution to integrate this for your students. So they can have single sign-on and have a seamless experience between your LMS and our curriculum. And just as importantly, your gradebook scores will import into your existing gradebook with your LMS program. We've also made sure that our curriculum is ADA compliant. You know, HOL Cloud is one of the only WCAG 2.0 ATA compliant educational platforms that is already built and ready for you and your students to use. So whether it's our screen reader capabilities, our alternative text for our images, or our closed captioning for our videos, or the color contrast that we use for diagrams on our platform, you can rest assured that we do meet those regulations that your school is probably already attaining to. And then lastly, we provide you with a quick view instructor dashboard for each class that you teach using our lab materials. So you can quickly assess the status of each student in your class, and also if there are any outstanding grades you need to assign per lesson, as you see at the bottom of this page. Here's another example of one of those bar charts that you can easily access. Lastly, and certainly not leastly, we are here to support both you and your students. We do have live phone support for both instructors and students. From a student standpoint, should they have any question about physical materials in their kit, should they have any questions or believe they're having an issue with accessing the HOL Cloud platform, they are more than encouraged to phone in, and one of our operators will provide them with a solution. Likewise, should you have any questions as an instructor, should it be with grading functionality, should it be with adding supplemental content, we also encourage you to email or phone in, and one of our representatives that specializes in instructor support will work with you at that time to assure that your efforts are successful. We want to thank you for your participation in today's webinar. I'm going to turn this back over to Lee at this point in time for some closing comments. And we're also going to stay on the line to field any questions that you may have submitted while Ben and I's presentations were ongoing or would like to submit at this point in time. So Lee?
Thank you, Duane. We did get a couple of really good questions. And I've tried to answer them, but it's always better when you guys provide the details since you're much more expert than I am. We had a question about, is there a license fee for the LTI?
No, there's no licensing fees associated with technology integration. Again, we're happy to forward any of that coding to the institution's IT department for them to seamlessly integrate within their existing platform. But no, there are no licensing fees.
Can you give us a little detail on the approximate cost of a kit?
We have standardized kits starting just below $100. We also have customizable kits, and the cost of the kit is determined solely by the types and amount of physical materials that a student's going to be using. So it's really not on there's not a per lesson average cost or anything like that. Obviously, you know, a fetal pig dissection specimen costs more than a cow eye, for example, or some chemicals may cost more than others. You know, glassware has an inherent cost to it. So it really is determined a ceiling, so to speak, on the cost of a kit by just how many lessons you incorporated into that kit, and certainly by the types of physical materials that are associated with those given lessons. But in general, you know, just below $100 for standard kits, up to as much as $300, depending on the discipline and the types of materials.
Wonderful, thank you. Do you ship overseas, specifically to APO addresses?
Absolutely, to APO addresses, not a problem. We can ship to physical addresses in other countries, depending on the customs regulations for that particular country. But for APO addresses, not a problem at all.
Here's another good question. Does the kit have extra supplies if the students happen to mess up an experiment?
In general, yes. There are some experiments that may not be able to be repeated, but in general, certainly if we're talking about chemistry and the GOB type experiments, almost always there are more chemicals in each of those pipettes that are called for in a particular procedure. So should a student make a mistake, they're easily able to repeat that procedure.
Wonderful. Let's see, I think we had, someone asked if every student has to buy a kit or if they're able to share between a group.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're using this on campus, which we do have clients that do use our materials on campus, it's really up to you to choose how you want students to share. I have a hard time as an educator envisioning how students would share a kit if they are truly online students and they're conducting these experiments off campus. You know, so that would be challenging on the students' part and how they would buddy up at the same time and do these experiments together. And they would also, I don't know how they could separately submit their work through the cloud platform. So we do for online or for on-campus schools, if they want each student to be able to interact with the HOL Cloud platform before they get to class and maybe submit those pre-tests before they get to the physical laboratory. We do have programs where they can certainly have multiple students access the platform with their each unique student user and then share kits, you know, 2 or more students to kit on campus. And our account reps are more than happy to address those needs when they arise with each instructor.
I'm not sure I understand this question. Can they get 2 kits but buy only 1 kit? I think that was pretty much what you were just discussing.
Yeah, I mean, do you mean like, yeah, I mean, certainly you could have 2 access, 2 students with unique accesses to the curriculum and share a kit. And again, our account reps can go over all those details with the instructor.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions from our audience? I think we've addressed everything today. If we have not, if there's any more information you'd like to have, if you'd like to have a personal demo of any of the disciplines, especially GOB chemistry, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us here on the webinar today. The sales team will be following up with you in the coming days to make sure that you've had all your questions answered. And we're happy to help if there's anything we can do to give you more information for your classes. And lastly, we will be sending you, as a thank you, a $5 Starbucks gift card via email in the next 24 hours. So if for some reason you don't see that in your email by the end of tomorrow, please reach out to me. You can get me at the news at holscience.com email address, and I'll make sure we get that to you. So can I email you the slides? Well, I certainly can. I can email you the presentation. That's not a problem. So thank you, Duane and Ben, and all of our attendees. We appreciate your time today, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Take care.